Hello, ladies. Welcome to another Women's Empire virtual training. Women's Empire is always providing value, so I hope you can grow and flourish. I'm honored to be a part of this training and hope that you find value for yourself and that you share it with others. Today, I'm going to talk about the role that hormones play in our bodies and relationships. If you saw the title is Sex. It's more than just hormones. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I want you to be fully present because I will be sharing information with you that I want you to take notes on. So if you've not already printed out your blueprint or my handout, then please pause this video, print it out, and then be open to learning something new and different about your body. I've designed my handout so that you can follow along and take notes as we go through the training. So sometimes when couples come to me, they say things like, we've fallen out of love, it's not the same as it was before, we want to have the love that we once had, or I'm not attracted to my partner anymore. Well, there are many different hormones and chemicals that are released in our bodies during those early stages of our relationship that are not released in such great quantities in the same amount in the later years. So have any of you experienced feelings like that? I think most of us go through these stages, especially if you've been together for a long time. So today I want to explain to you why and how this happens. And it's the way that our bodies have been designed, and it's the way that they've been created to be. So the first stage of love we feel when we get together with someone is called the yearning stage, right? We're always yearning to be with our partner. And this is the type of love that we talk about when discussing intimate relationships. This is also the type of love that we see in the Hollywood movies, that's portrayed in so many movies, right? Boy meets girl, they fall in love, they get married, and they live happily ever after, right? So we think, right? Well, this stage is all about the hormones and the chemicals that are being released, and our bodies feel it, right? Every time we're with our partner, we feel kind of that rush or that tinge that's coming from within our bodies, right? From the chemicals that we're releasing. Well, we feel good inside when we're with our partner, and this is nature's way of ensuring that we get together, that we reproduce, that we procreate, right? These hormones are saying, procreate, right? To move us along, right? And this is such a strong force of love that it actually strengthens us. And when we're first together, we had the stamina to stay up all night long, right? Our partner, we thought about them all the time, and we hardly thought about anything else. Well, that is the chemical stage of love. And you are literally filled to the brim with measurably different levels of chemicals and hormones. These elevated chemicals last for about 2 to 3 years for most couples, and these chemicals are vital in establishing an attraction to our partner. During this stage of love, we have high chemicals, but we also have low clarity, right? We don't fully know our partners. We don't clearly know them in every single aspect. And so that's kind of how the beginning of the relationship is. The relationship hasn't been tested, and we're on cloud 9, right? We don't have a full understanding of our situation because the hormones and the chemicals that are in our body are so high. This is why they say love is blind, right? It literally is blind. So we're going to talk about some of these hormones and what they do in our bodies. We're going to look at the role that hormones play in our bodies and how that affects our relationships. So the first hormone I want to talk about today is estrogen. And this is thought to be responsible for a healthy libido. It is also the core of a woman's nurturing side with the ability to communicate verbally and emotionally. Estrogen does a lot of other things, but we're just going to talk about what it does for the body in relationships. So next hormone is testosterone, and this is secreted in men and women and plays a key role in our well-being and our energy, also our sexual arousal. And in the womb, all babies' brains, when they're first starting to grow, it's actually like a female brain. So when you have the the eggs and the sperm, right, they come together, and so you either have an XX or you have an XY, right? And so those brains start out kind of as a female brain until the testosterone starts dripping. And once that testosterone is dripping on the male brain, it literally changes the structure of that brain. And so men actually produce up to 60 times more testosterone than women. So this is usually why you typically have men that have higher sex drives, because they are producing about 60 times more testosterone than we are. So that's quite a difference. The next hormone that I want to talk about is oxytocin, and this is an especially important hormone for women. It is released when we are nursing our babies, and it's also how we bond with them. Women release oxytocin when they're communicating, and this is what bonds us. That's kind of how we're wired. So if you look at the differences between girl babies and boy babies, like we talked about in the womb with that testosterone dripping, women are a little bit different because we release lots of oxytocin when we're talking. This is how we bond. And so if you look at the differences between girl babies and boy babies, girl babies tend to have more eye-to-eye contact. They are studying faces much more. And so that's kind of how women are able to read emotions and to be able to connect with people on that type of a level. And that's due to the oxytocin that we release. And it aids in our social and our maternal behaviors. So it's also responsible for sexual arousal. It makes us feel addicted to one another and creates those longing feelings. It is also released during orgasm. So it's a very important hormone for men and women because when releasing oxytocin, it binds us together. And so when we are sexually active and having orgasms, we are releasing oxytocin so that we feel very bonded to one another. And there's an entire study, an entire science behind those hormones and how they relate to sex. But today we're just going to keep it simple. One interesting thing is that women release twice as much oxytocin, when we're just talking to people. We can literally feel a high from just talking to one another because we are bonding. Oxytocin is being released and helping us to bond with one another. And the next hormone that I want to talk about are the endorphins. These are responsible for many of the highs that we as women and men feel and experience. They reduce pain and have a great impact on our emotions. These hormones allow us to enjoy having long conversations with our partners for hours on end. Endorphins are also released when we exercise. So this is one reason why exercise is so important for our bodies. The endorphins interact with the receptors on our brain that has the perception of pain. And so these endorphins trigger happy, positive feelings in the body that's very similar to morphine. And this is why people can exercise when they have injuries and not feel as much pain. So for me, I had a lot of back problems. I've had back problems for a lot of years. And back in November, I had my back fused. But as I was preparing for surgery and going through the decisions if that was for me, I continued to go to the gym. I would wake up in the morning and I would have a lot of pain and I would go to the gym. And after about 5 or 10 minutes of being on the bike, my body started to produce endorphins, and lo and behold, what happened? I was able to exercise the whole rest of the hour and not be in any pain. I could drive home and not be in pain, and about the time that I got out of the shower, I would start to feel that pain. I would go ahead and put on my lidocaine patches to numb the pain, take my pain medication. But it was nice to have at least an hour where I did not have to feel pain. So it's very important, these two hormones, oxytocin and endorphins. They go hand in hand in regard to sexual activity, because sexual activity will cause an increase in production of oxytocin, which is also referred to as the love hormone, right? So before orgasm, oxytocin is released from the brain and it surges and is accompanied by a release of endorphins that are our natural pain-killing hormones. And that's why these hormones go hand in hand during sexual activity. So the next hormone I want to talk about is adrenaline, or otherwise known as epinephrine. And higher levels of adrenaline give couples that burst of energy and endurance, and that's why couples can stay up late into the night without any concern about their schedules the next morning. So a great example is my daughter. She is engaged right now, and her fiance will be up until 2 or 3 in the morning without regard to the schedules that are going on the next morning. So, but they do have lots of adrenaline going on right now. And it is the hormone, and it's actually a neurotransmitter, and it's produced by the adrenal glands that participate in the sympathetic nervous system. So this is your fight or flight response. And in these types of situations, this is where we have high stress, where things can be dangerous, or when we're having like physical exhilarations. The next hormone is dopamine. And this is the last one that I'll talk about. Dopamine is the pleasure and happiness chemical. It is also a neurotransmitter, and it is released during pleasurable situations and stimulates one to seek out pleasurable activities or situations. This means it can be released when we're eating food. It can be released during physical activity or while we are being intimate, because these things stimulate the release of dopamine in the brain. And the brain is like a muscle, and it needs to be exercised. So it is important that we do things to increase our dopamine levels so that we remain healthy. Things like Parkinson's disease are shown to have low levels, or people that have low levels of dopamine. So these chemicals and hormones, which the strength that they have kind of lessens over time, right? This should never be used to determine the integrity of a long-term relationship or be set as the standard in an expectation of a long-term relationship. Your chemistry, right, as we talked about in the beginning, will be tested, and you will need to have other strategies in place if you want the relationship to succeed. So the chemicals and hormones that we have in our bodies play a vital role in our relationships and in our marriages. So why is it important to understand hormones that we produce and the effect they have on our bodies? Why is that important, right? Because our bodies, it's our body's way of allowing us to have a deeper connection with another person. That's the way our bodies have been designed. We know that these hormones are produced in very high levels when we're first together, but we can still find ways to make sure that they're produced so that we continue to bond and connect with our partner. This is one reason why having physical touch in your marriage or your relationship is so important. So how do we do this? Well, one thing that we can do is to create loving moments every day in our relationships. So what is a loving moment? These can include things such as traditions, rituals, habits, other key moments that are mutually beneficial to help build our marriages. They require some key components. So how do we do this? The first thing is that they need to be coordinated. We need to clearly define who, what, when, where, and why we are having these moments. And we need to ensure that both parties understand the expectations. We want to be able to live in agreements and not forcing one partner to do something that they don't want to do. The next thing is that they need to be connected. We need to ensure that each loving moment engages the both of you so that you deepen your sense of connection with your partner. The third thing is that they need to be emotionally significant. They should provide value for both of you. And they need to be sacred. Hold these loving traditions or rituals or practices sacred and protect them at all costs if these are things that are important to you. The last thing is that they need to be predictable. You need to measure your loving moments against this criteria. Does it build trust, and is it practiced enough to be habitual? So a couple examples that I want to share with you is, I know if you're on this training, you probably know April, and her and Chadwick have date night every Wednesday night. That is something for them that is predictable, it's sacred, it's emotionally significant for them. They are connected and they are coordinated. So every Wednesday night, if you know April, you know that she's on a date. That's just something that she has decided to do and to create those loving moments. Another one that I want to share is I have a cute couple that I'm working with, and every morning she lays out the towel on the counter for him. So instead of him having to come out of the shower dripping wet, reaching the other side of the bathroom for the towel, she sets it up there for him to come and get when he's out of the shower. And so the two of them know that if they're mad at one another, that the towel will not be there. And so, he'll tell me, I know that she's upset with me if I come out of the shower and the towel is not there. So these are things that can be predictable. They don't have to be something like a kiss. A kiss is something that's very nice, like a morning kiss, but the two of you get to decide what those moments will look like. So how does this actually relate to our hormones? Well, when we create these loving moments, we are connecting physically, and that will help our bodies to release those feel-good hormones. So here are some suggestions. Look at, how do you greet one another in the morning? Is there something that happens? Do you say good morning? Do you kiss one another? What about when you leave for the day? Is there something that you do to connect? A hug, a kiss? Think about those types of things, because those goodbyes and those hellos are very important. Those are rituals. Those are things that you do on a daily basis. And you can determine how long that hug or kiss should be. So recently there's been a lot of studies that have shown and that suggest 20 seconds is a good amount for health benefits when hugging your partner. And the thing that's cool about that is that oxytocin is released after a 20-second hug. So that's the challenge. If that's what you want to do, is, hug your partner for 20 seconds. That way you'll release the oxytocin and you'll feel more bonded with your partner. Another loving ritual or loving moment can be when you check in with your partner during the day. So you can send them a text, you can send them a message, or better yet, do a video call, right? A FaceTime, a Voxer, a Marco Polo. There's a lot of different apps that we have now that we can use to connect with one another. Men are much more visually stimulated, and so they want to see us. So ladies, let them see you. Connect with them throughout the day. So my challenge for you in those loving moments is to find 3 to 5 of these every day to connect with your partner. So think about those hellos and those goodbyes. Think about the midday check-in. And the last thing is cuddle time. So I'll talk about that a little bit later, but discuss with your partner what type of loving moments that you want to create between the two of you every day, and then actually do them. The next section I want to talk about are the other times that we have physical touch. So what about when we're walking? Do we hold hands with one another? What about when we're sitting next to one another? Do we put our arms around another? What about tickling our arms? I know that I love to have my arm tickled, and I'll just put my arm out. My husband will just tickle my arm, and I love that. What about massage? Do you want to, scratch their back? Do you want to massage their back? What about a foot rub? Any of those types of things are physical touch. And our bodies need and they crave to have physical touch. Do not put aside the importance of having those small loving moments throughout your day or throughout the week. Every time that we can connect physically with someone that we love, we release chemicals, and thus we bond ourselves with them. So what about cuddle time? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what that actually means. Do you connect with your partner in bed for cuddle time? And this doesn't need to be about sex and touching one another, but do we connect? Do we gaze into one another's eyes? Surprisingly, most of us spend very little time connecting and looking eye to eye with our partner. So some people, when they're having cuddle time, they like to hold hands, or they like to spoon, or just hold one another. So the final thing is, what about sex, right? In the Women's Empire training this quarter, we are all about the body and creating voltage. And how do we do that? Well, we've already discussed all of the hormones and chemicals that we release when being intimate with our partner. And this creates voltage for ourselves and for our partner. Our bodies were designed that way. So if this is something that you are lacking in your marriage, ask yourself why. Sex can be much more of an emotional experience for women than it is for men. We crave to have emotional intimacy because women connect and bond while communicating. we release twice as much oxytocin as men do when talking. So when do men release lots of oxytocin? They release it during orgasm and sexual activity. So this may be one reason why men crave to be intimate more often than their partners do, because they crave that connection. For women, we can connect and release oxytocin just by having conversations. And so we feel very emotionally intimate with a partner when we're able to have those deep conversations, because our body is releasing oxytocin and our brain is saying, this is awesome, we're totally connecting, right? But for men, it's something a little bit different. And their bodies are connecting when they're releasing oxytocin, and they want to be with us. So I know as women, we get tired, we're busy, sometimes we're just not into it. But ladies, if you want to be more connected with your partner, try being more intimate with them. If need be, schedule it. That's right, I'm serious. Put it on your calendar and do it. If you know that your partner's love language is physical touch and you are not touching one another, they will be starving. And so it's very nice if you just put that on the calendar. And then if you have one partner that is, way more into having, sexual intimate activity than the other one, then at least you have it on the calendar and you know when that's going to happen. And so it allows that partner to know, when am I going to be able to connect with my partner, right? So as humans, we crave this physical touch. And so I want you to allow yourselves to have that opportunity. So there may be many reasons why this is not happening in your relationship, and I'm not going to go into those details today, but I want you to know that if your lack of sexual activity is an area of concern for you and your relationship, then please seek some guidance. If your lack of sexual activity is due to a physical issue, then please speak with a doctor or someone that you feel could help you in this area, because it's very important to have those connections. And when we are releasing those hormones, we can feel that connection. The other thing I want to let you know is that I don't want you to feel pressured to increase your sexual activity based on what I'm telling you today. I want you to just be able to consider other possibilities so that you can fulfill the desire that bodies need for physical touch. Our bodies are one of the most important gifts that we've been given, and they were created so that we could connect, so that we could procreate, so that we could feel pleasure. Our bodies are very sacred, and we should care for them in a way that is loving, kind, gentle, and compassionate. I know there will be many trainings on the virtual summit to assist you in becoming the woman that you desire to be. So I challenge you to take the time to watch and learn from the amazing women that you'll hear during this training. My personal invitation and challenge to you today is that if you want to create more intimacy in your relationship, then practice cuddle time every night for 2 weeks. So the rules are, you want to take 15 to 20 minutes each day to connect with your partner in bed. And what does this look like? Well, first you start by looking one another eye to eye, and you can hold hands too. And when you're in that position laying down, that you're going to be heart to heart with your partner. And the real reason that we want to communicate with our partner is to have our hearts understood. Usually when we're communicating, we're not trying to figure out, well, what's going on in the head. We want to be understood in our heart. And so I want you to spend about 15 to 20 minutes talking to one another about your relationship, about your desires, about your concerns, about your needs and your wants, the things that are in your relationship. But ladies, it's not a time to gripe, right? This is not a time to talk about all of the problems, things going on with the kids, any of those types of things. It's just a time for you to connect. And you can have loving touch, right? You can cuddle one another, you can, tickle one another, run your fingers through their hair, all of those types of things that our bodies crave. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to lead to sexual activity. So we can be intimate without having sex. And this challenge of cuddle time just has 2 rules. And the first rule is that you should be eye to eye. I want you to be eye to eye, knee to knee, hand to hand, if you're going to hold hands, and heart to heart. And the second rule is no griping and no grabbing, right? So it's not a time to complain, and it's not a time that has to lead to sex. So that's mostly for the gentlemen. So if you want to learn more about how to connect with your partner, then please check out my handout with my contact information. I work as a relationship coach, mostly with couples. And I assist them in connecting their head, right? Their heads, their hearts, their hands, all the while creating hope so that they can create that relationship that they truly desire. And being in a committed relationship can be a beautiful thing. And if you're in a long-term relationship, you know that that's going to require some work. It requires you to love, even when that is the hard thing to do. I love you, ladies. I may not know you, you may not know me, but I know that the principles that I share with you allow you to build character and create lasting, loving relationships. Remember, every day requires a daily serving of love. So make it happen. It will change the trajectory of your marriage. Thank you, ladies, and I hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to hearing from you.